Miss Mitchell, I'll ask you one more time. Judge Brennan leaned forward, his reading glasses catching the fluorescent light. Are you prepared to testify against Vincent Moretti and his organization, or are you wasting this court's time? Sarah's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Behind her, she could feel the weight of 100 eyes, journalists, spectators, Vincent's people. Especially Vincent's people. She'd spent 3 weeks preparing for this moment, memorizing every detail of what she'd witnessed that night at the warehouse. Every illegal transaction she'd documented as the accountant who'd stumbled into knowledge that could bring down the most powerful crime family in Chicago. But that was before the photos. Before someone slipped pictures under her apartment door at 3 a.m. Pictures of her sister Emma dropping her kids off at school. Pictures of her elderly mother pruning roses in her garden. Pictures of Sarah herself, walking to her car, buying coffee, existing in a world that suddenly felt like a sniper's scope. Your Honor, Her voice cracked. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Catherine Wells, touched her shoulder, but Sarah flinched away. I can't. I'm sorry, I can't do this. The courtroom erupted. Judge Brennan's gavel cracked like a gunshot, but Sarah was already backing away from the witness stand, her heels catching on the step. She stumbled, caught herself on the railing, and that's when she saw him. Vincent Moretti sat in the front row of the gallery, perfectly still in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car. He wasn't smiling, wasn't threatening. He just watched her with those unsettling gray eyes, the kind of eyes that looked through you rather than at you, calculating something she couldn't begin to understand. He was younger than she'd expected from a man with his reputation, maybe 35, with dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on a Renaissance sculpture, all sharp angles and aristocratic lines. Beautiful, if you could call something so dangerous beautiful, like a blade catching the light. Miss Mitchell, sit down. The judge's voice cut through her panic. I haven't dismissed you. But she was already moving, pushing through the low gate that separated the well from the gallery, her vision tunneling. Someone grabbed her arm, one of the court officers, but she wrenched free with a strength born of pure terror. Let her go. That voice stopped everyone. Deep, quiet, with an accent that suggested private schools and old money, the kind of Polish that made the violence underneath it even more chilling. Vincent hadn't moved from his seat, hadn't even raised his voice, but the entire room fell silent. The officer released her arm. Sarah ran. She made it to the bathroom before the tears came, ugly and gasping, the kind of crying that hurt your chest and made your face blotchy. She'd failed. Failed herself. Failed Catherine Wells. Failed everyone who'd believed she was brave enough to do the right thing. But bravery, she'd learned, was a luxury afforded to people whose families weren't in danger. The bathroom door opened. Sarah looked up, expecting a court officer, or maybe Catherine, ready to tell her what a disappointment she was. Instead, Melissa Chen walked in, carrying Sarah's purse. Melissa was her paralegal, had been for the 2 years Sarah worked at Morrison & Associates before everything went to hell. Pretty, efficient Melissa with her perfect manicures and her habit of staying late at the office, always ready with coffee and sympathy during the long nights of trial preparation. Jesus, Sarah. Melissa set the purse on the counter, her expression somewhere between pity and exasperation. You really did it. I couldn't. Sarah's voice was raw. You saw those pictures. They know where Emma lives, where my mom. I know. Melissa pulled out her phone, her thumbs moving quickly across the screen. I know exactly what they know. Something in her tone made Sarah's stomach drop. What? Melissa looked up and her face was different, harder. You really thought you could testify against Vincent Moretti? That man owns half this city, Sarah. Judges, cops, prosecutors. You think Catherine Wells is some crusader for justice? She's building her political career. You were just convenient. Melissa, what are you? I'm the one who sent the pictures. Melissa said it casually like she was discussing the weather. Well, I didn't take them. Vincent's people did that. But I made sure you got them. I knew you'd fold. The floor seemed to tilt. You work for him. I work for the family. Yes. Have for 3 years. How do you think Moretti always stays 2 steps ahead? How do you think he knew you'd found those documents in the first place? Melissa's smile was almost pitying. I've been feeding him information from Morrison and Associates since the day I started. And when you got cold feet about testifying, I made sure he knew you were too scared to be a problem. Sarah's hands gripped the edge of the sink. You betrayed me. I protected you, actually. Vincent wanted to handle you the traditional way. I convinced him surveillance would be enough. Melissa's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then back at Sarah. I need you to understand something. You're out of this now. The case is dead. Go home, keep your mouth shut, and you'll be fine. Your family will be fine. But if you try to reopen this, if you go to the FBI or find some new prosecutor with a hero complex... She let the sentence hang. What? Then I can't protect you anymore, and Vincent doesn't give third chances. Melissa walked to the door, paused. For what it's worth, I like you, Sarah. You're a good person, but good people don't survive in this world by being stupid. Remember that. She left. Sarah stood there for a long time, staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Her mascara had run in black streaks down her cheeks. Her carefully chosen suit, navy blue, respectable, the kind of thing brave witnesses wore, looked ridiculous now. A costume for a role she couldn't play. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but some masochistic impulse made her press the green button, lift it to her ear. Miss Mitchell? Vincent Moretti's voice was even more unsettling over the phone, intimate in a way that made her skin crawl. We should talk. I have nothing to say to you. Perhaps, but I have several things to say to you, and I'd prefer to do so in person. There's a car waiting for you at the courthouse's east entrance. Black SUV, driver named Thomas. He'll bring you to me. I'm not getting in a car with your people. Then I'll come to you. Your apartment is on Maple Street, correct? 4th floor, Unit 402? Or we could meet at your mother's house. I believe she's home right now, repotting orchids in her sunroom. Sarah's blood turned to ice. The car, Miss Mitchell. 5 minutes. Don't make me ask twice. He hung up. The thing about fear, Sarah had learned over the past 3 weeks, was that it eventually calcified into something else. Resignation, maybe. Or a kind of numb determination. She'd already lost her courage in that courtroom. What was left to lose? She walked out of the bathroom, through the courthouse's marble halls with their carved eagles and fading murals, and out the east entrance. The SUV was exactly where he'd said it would be, idling at the curb. A man in a driver's uniform opened the rear door. She got in. They drove for 20 minutes, leaving downtown behind for the kind of neighborhood where the houses hid behind iron gates and old oak trees. The SUV finally stopped in front of a building that looked like it had been transplanted from a European city. All stone facade and arched windows, the kind of place that whispered old money and older secrets. Thomas opened her door. Top floor. The elevator was all dark wood and brass, rising silently. The doors opened directly into a penthouse apartment that took Sarah's breath away despite everything. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, the afternoon sun painting everything in shades of gold. The furniture was minimal, but obviously expensive. Art on the walls that might have been original Rothkos. Vincent Moretti stood by those windows, his back to her, one hand in his pocket. He'd removed his suit jacket. His white shirt was rolled up at the sleeves, revealing forearms that spoke of time in the gym. Discipline. Power contained. You came. He didn't turn around. I wasn't certain you would. You threatened my mother. I stated a fact. There's a difference. Now he turned, and the light behind him put his face half in shadow. Pour yourself a drink. You look like you need one. There was a bar cart near the leather sofa. Sarah's hands were shaking again, but she managed to pour 2 fingers of what looked like very expensive scotch into a crystal tumbler. It burned going down. I'm not going to testify, she said. Your paralegal made that very clear. Melissa? Yes. Vincent moved away from the window, prowling closer with that predatory grace. She's efficient, perhaps too efficient. She tends to solve problems before I've decided whether I want them solved or how. What does that mean? He picked up his own glass from the coffee table, swirled it. It means Melissa decided you were a threat and took steps to neutralize you. The photographs, the surveillance, the carefully crafted terror campaign. All her initiative. Sarah's confusion must have shown on her face. I don't wage war on accountants, Miss Mitchell. You're a civilian who saw something you shouldn't have and made the extremely poor decision to take it to the authorities. Misguided, but not uncommon. People have an idealistic view of justice. He sipped his scotch. But Melissa reported that you'd been subpoenaed, and she decided to handle it her way. By the time I learned the details, the damage was done. You're saying you didn't order it. I'm saying I would have handled it differently. He set down his glass. You should understand something about my organization. I inherited it from my father when I was 23 years old. He built it on fear, on making examples, on ensuring everyone in this city knew the cost of crossing the Moretti family. It was effective, but inefficient. Fear makes people desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. He moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and woody, and see the faint scar above his left eyebrow. I don't need you afraid, Sarah. I need you to understand where you stand. And where's that? Between a system that will use you and dispose of you, and me. Catherine Wells doesn't care what happens to you or your family once this trial is over. She'll get her conviction or her headlines, and you'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering if the next car door opening is someone coming to settle accounts. His eyes held hers. I could have solved this very simply. One accident. You never testify, the case collapses. Life continues. But Melissa's approach offends me. Terrorizing civilians, targeting family members, it's crude. So what do you want? I want to offer you a choice. Sarah laughed, the sound bitter. Like the choice I had in that courtroom? Better than that, much better. Vincent stepped back, giving her space. Melissa has been reporting your movements to me for weeks. Every meeting with Catherine Wells, every practice session for your testimony. Every late night you spent reviewing documents. Do you know what I learned? She shook her head. You're brilliant. The way you traced those transactions, connected shell companies, found patterns my own accountants missed. It was impressive. You're wasted at Morrison & Associates, drafting contracts and filing incorporations. He paused. I need someone like you. You want me to work for you? The words came out strangled. I want you to work with me. There's a difference. I have legitimate businesses, Sarah. Hotels, restaurants, real estate developments. They need proper management, clean books, someone who understands both the law and the creative spaces between the lines. He pulled a card from his pocket, set it on the coffee table. This is the offer. A position at Moretti Holdings, triple your current salary, full benefits. You'd oversee the financial operations of my legal enterprises. And in exchange, the charges go away. The case collapses without your testimony anyway, but I'll ensure there are no lingering questions, no ambitious prosecutors looking to rebuild. You and your family are safe, protected, and you get to use your skills in ways that matter. Sarah picked up the card. It was heavy stock, embossed lettering. Director of Financial Operations, Moretti Holdings. You're asking me to cross a line. I'm asking you to survive. Everything else is semantics. Vincent's voice softened slightly. You did the right thing, reporting what you saw. That took courage, but courage without strategy is just martyrdom, and martyrs don't get to see their nieces and nephews grow up. The weight of the last 3 weeks crashed over her. The fear, the sleepless nights, the way she'd jumped at every sound. The look on Emma's face when Sarah told her to take the kids and stay with their aunt in Wisconsin until this was over. If I say no, then you walk out of here. I don't harm you, don't threaten you. The case is already dead. You saw to that in the courtroom. You'll go back to your life, and we'll never speak again. He met her eyes. But Catherine Wells won't forgive you for failing to testify. Morrison and Associates will let you go. They can't have someone associated with this kind of publicity. You'll be unemployed, potentially unemployable, in a city where my name carries weight in every industry. Not because I'll sabotage you, but because that's simply how this works. That's still a threat. It's reality. I'm offering you a ladder out of the hole you're in. Whether you take it is your choice. Sarah looked at the card again. The numbers he'd mentioned were staggering, more than she'd make in 5 years at her current job. Enough to pay off her student loans, help Emma with the kids, make sure her mother's medical bills weren't a constant source of anxiety. I need time to think. Of course, take 3 days. Thursday, 5 p.m., you'll either meet me at the Moretti Holdings office on Michigan Avenue, or you won't. He walked to a desk, wrote something on a piece of paper. This is my personal number. If you have questions, if you're in danger, if you need anything at all in the next 3 days, you call me. Not Melissa. Me. Why? Why what? Why do you care? I'm just an accountant who nearly destroyed your case. Why offer me anything? Vincent was quiet for a long moment. My father would have killed you. Quickly, probably painlessly, but dead nonetheless. I've spent 10 years trying to build something different than what he left me. Something that doesn't require bodies and terror to function. You're proof that I can do that. That I can turn an enemy into an asset through persuasion rather than violence. He smiled slightly. Call it an experiment in evolution. Thomas drove her home in silence. Sarah climbed the 4 flights to her apartment, locked the door behind her, and sat on her couch for an hour without moving. Her phone rang. Emma? Hey, Sarah tried to sound normal. How are the kids? They're fine. We're fine. Sarah, I saw the news. The case was dismissed. Does that mean... It means I didn't testify. Silence on the other end. Then quietly, Are you safe? I think so. Maybe. I don't know anymore. Come up here. Stay with us for a while. Get away from the city. Sarah closed her eyes. I can't run forever, Em. Then what are you going to do? That was the question, wasn't it? What would she do? Go back to Morrison and Associates and clear out her desk. Send out resumes, knowing every potential employer would Google her name and find articles about the collapsed Moretti trial? Watch her savings dwindle while she figured out how to rebuild a life? Or take the card burning a hole in her pocket and step into a world she'd spent her entire career believing she was supposed to fight against? She didn't sleep that night. Or the next. By Wednesday, she'd read everything she could find about Moretti Holdings. It was surprisingly legitimate. Luxury hotels in 3 states. A restaurant group that included some of the city's most prestigious establishments. Commercial real estate that generated millions in annual revenue. The business press loved Vincent, called him the next generation of Chicago leadership. The man who'd transformed his family's reputation from organized crime to corporate success. But underneath, always underneath, were the whispers. The rumors. The way certain city contracts seemed to go to Moretti subsidiaries without competitive bidding. The unions that never struck at his properties. The competitors who suddenly faced unexpected regulatory problems. Clean on the surface, dark underneath, like Vincent himself. Thursday morning, Sarah put on her best suit, the charcoal one she'd worn to her interview at Morrison and Associates, when her life was simpler and her conscience clearer. She did her makeup carefully, painted on a mask of confidence she didn't feel. At 4:30, she stood outside the building on Michigan Avenue. 50 stories of glass and steel, Moretti Holdings occupying the top 10 floors. She could walk away, get on the train, go home, figure something else out. Instead, she walked through the revolving doors. The elevator seemed faster this time, or maybe time was just moving strangely. The doors opened onto a reception area that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine, all clean lines and expensive minimalism. A receptionist looked up, smiled. Sarah Mitchell for Mr. Moretti. Of course, he's expecting you. Vincent's office occupied a corner of the building, windows on 2 sides offering views that stretched to the lake. He was on a phone call when his assistant showed her in. But he held up one finger. Wait, and gestured to a chair. I don't care what the city says, Marcus. We have the permits, we have the approvals, and we break ground on Monday. If someone has a problem with that, they can take it up with our attorneys. He listened for a moment. Good. Keep me updated. He hung up, turned his full attention to her. You came. I did. And? Sarah set her bag down, carefully. I need to know something first. The things I saw, the transactions I documented, was that you? Your operation? Yes. At least he was honest. Will I be involved in that side of things? The illegal side? No. I keep my legitimate businesses entirely separate. You'll work with clean money, legal operations. I have other people who handle the rest. He leaned back in his chair. But I won't lie to you and pretend they don't exist. You'll be working for a man who operates in both worlds. If that's something you can't live with, tell me now. I don't know if I can. That's honest. Vincent stood, moved to the windows. The late afternoon light turned his profile into something almost classical. A coin struck in human flesh. I'm not asking you to approve of everything I do, Sarah. I'm asking you to recognize that the world is more complicated than the law pretends it is. You saw corruption in my organization? Have you considered the corruption that put you in that witness stand? Catherine Wells knew you'd be painted as a target. She didn't care. The system you believed in was willing to sacrifice you for a win. That doesn't make what you do right. No, but it makes it honest. I don't pretend to be something I'm not. I offer protection, prosperity, loyalty to those who work for me. In exchange, I expect the same. He turned to face her fully. You want to know why I really offered you this position? Because you tried to do the right thing, even when it was dangerous. That's rare. Most people in this city have learned to look away, to mind their business, to take the easy path. You didn't. I respect that, even if it was directed at me. You respect me so much you're forcing me to work for you. I'm not forcing anything. You can still leave. But I think you know that this is the best option available. Not just for survival, but for growth. I can give you opportunities you'd never have at a conventional firm. Real responsibility, real influence, real compensation for your skills. He paused. And I can promise you something else. While you work for me, you and your family are under my protection. Not as a threat, but as a guarantee. No one touches you. No one threatens you. You become untouchable. Sarah thought of Emma, of her mother, of the nieces and nephews she'd barely seen in 3 weeks. How do I know you'll keep that promise? Because my word is the only currency that matters in my world. If I make a promise and break it, I lose everything. Trust is the foundation of power, Sarah. I learned that from watching my father destroy it. He walked to his desk, pulled out a folder. Your employment contract. Read it carefully. Have a lawyer review it if you want. Everything I've promised is in writing. Salary, benefits, scope of responsibilities. You'll report directly to me. No intermediaries. No Melissa pulling strings. What happened to her? She's been reassigned, away from anything involving you or your family. Sarah took the folder, flipped through pages of dense legal text. It looked legitimate, almost boring in its thoroughness. You really want me to have this reviewed? I want you to make an informed decision. You have until Monday. If you sign, you start immediately. If you don't, you walk away, and we're done. Vincent moved closer, and there was something different in his expression now. Softer, maybe. For what it's worth, I hope you stay. I meant what I said about your skills. You're wasted on small-time corporate work. Here, you could build something significant. With a crime boss. With a businessman who has a complicated past and complicated present. He smiled slightly. Semantics again. Sarah left with the contract, her head spinning. She took it to a lawyer Emma recommended, paid too much money for a rush review. The lawyer called her Saturday morning. It's clean, better than clean actually. The liability protections alone are remarkable. If you can get past who you're working for, this is an exceptional opportunity. If you can get past who you're working for. That was the question that kept her up Saturday night, pacing her apartment. Could she work for Vincent Moretti? Could she take his money, manage his legitimate businesses, and pretend not to know what else existed? But then, hadn't she already been doing that in a way? Working for Morrison and Associates, drafting contracts for clients who skirted legal boundaries, helping corporations find creative ways to minimize tax obligations. The law was full of gray areas, and she'd navigated them without losing sleep. Was this really so different? Sunday afternoon, she called the number he'd given her. Sarah. He picked up on the second ring. Have you decided? I need to know one more thing. Why did you really spare me? When Melissa wanted to handle this the traditional way, why did you say no? He was quiet for so long, she thought the call had dropped. Then, my father killed anyone who threatened him. It made him powerful, but it also made him paranoid. He spent his last years seeing enemies everywhere, unable to trust anyone, dying alone in a hospital room with guards at the door. Another pause. I don't want that life. I want to build something that doesn't require blood to maintain. You were a test, I suppose. Could I neutralize a threat without violence? Could I turn an enemy into an ally? If I could, it meant I was better than he was. That I'd evolved past the old ways. That's a lot of weight to put on one accountant. Perhaps. But you're here, aren't you? Calling me, considering my offer. That suggests I was right. Sarah looked out her window at the city below, all those lights and lives and secrets. I'll sign. Monday morning. She could hear the smile in his voice. 9 a.m. Welcome to Moretti Holdings, Miss Mitchell. Her first day was surreal. Vincent introduced her to the executive team, serious men and women in expensive suits who treated her with cautious respect. Her office was on the same floor as his, smaller but still impressive, with a view and furniture that must have cost a fortune. The work itself was surprisingly engaging. Vincent hadn't lied about the scope. She was overseeing financial operations across a dozen entities, making real decisions with real consequences. And the numbers were clean. Suspiciously clean, maybe, but legally defensible. He checked in regularly those first weeks, always professional, but with an undercurrent of something else. Making sure she had everything she needed, asking her opinion on deals and strategies, listening when she pushed back on ideas she thought were too aggressive. You're not afraid to disagree with me, he observed one day, after she'd argued against a proposed acquisition. I appreciate that. You're paying me to be competent, not agreeable. True, though the two aren't mutually exclusive. He signed the document she'd revised. You were right, by the way. The property values were inflated. We would have overpaid. The strange thing was how normal it became. She fell into a rhythm. Work, home, occasional dinners with Emma and the kids, now that they'd returned from Wisconsin. Her mother noticed the change in her circumstances, the nicer clothes and the absence of constant stress, and asked careful questions Sarah deflected, with vague answers about a new position. 2 months in, everything changed. It started with an offhand comment from Vincent during a late meeting. They were reviewing quarterly reports, the office quiet except for their voices and the hum of the building's ventilation. You've done well here, he said, not looking up from the spreadsheet. Better than I anticipated. Thank you. I'm curious, though. Do you ever regret it? Taking this position? Sarah considered the question. Sometimes. When I think about what it means. But then I remember what the alternative was, and regret seems like a luxury. That's pragmatic. That's survival. He looked up then, and there was something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Vulnerability, maybe. I regret what Melissa did. The fear campaign, the photographs. It was beneath us. Beneath me. You've said that. I know. But I wanted you to know that I meant it. That if I could undo it, I would. He closed the laptop. You didn't deserve that. You were just trying to do what you thought was right. And now I'm working for you. Irony isn't subtle, is it? No. But perhaps it's not irony. Perhaps it's something more complicated. Vincent stood, moved to the window. It was late enough that the city lights had taken over from the sunset. I've spent 10 years trying to legitimize my family's legacy. Every hotel, every restaurant, every clean investment, it's proof that we can be more than what my father made us. But some stains don't wash out, no matter how much success you build over them. Vincent, there's something you should know. He turned to face her. The documents you found, the transactions you traced, I've shut down those operations, completely. It took time, had to be done carefully to avoid questions, but as of last week, those particular activities no longer exist. Sarah's breath caught. Why? Because you were right. They were sloppy, dangerous, and ultimately unnecessary. We're profitable enough through legitimate means. The illegal revenue was pocket change compared to our real businesses, but the risk was enormous. He moved closer. You showed me that. Your investigation revealed vulnerabilities I hadn't seen because I was too close to it, so I eliminated them. You're saying I made you more legal? I'm saying you made me smarter. There's a difference, but the result is the same. He was very close now, close enough that she could see the exhaustion around his eyes, the weight he carried. I want to show you something. Come with me. He led her to a conference room she'd never entered, unlocked a cabinet, and pulled out a thick file. Inside were documents, photographs, ledgers, evidence of operations she recognized from her original investigation. This is everything. Every piece of evidence that could connect me to those activities. I'm giving it to you. Sarah stared at the file like it was a live grenade. Why? Insurance. For you. If anything happens to you, if I break my promise about protecting you or your family, if I become the man my father was, you have this. Take it to the FBI, the media, whoever. Destroy me. His voice was steady. I'm trusting you with the power to end everything I've built. That's how serious I am about keeping my word. Vincent, I can't... Yes, you can. You're the only person I can trust with this. Because you've already proven you'll do the right thing, even when it costs you. He pressed the file into her hands. Keep it safe. Hope you never need it. But know that it's yours. Sarah looked down at the weight in her hands, literal and metaphorical. This is insane. This is trust. Real trust. The kind that requires vulnerability. I'm trusting you not to destroy me. You're trusting me not to hurt you. It's mutual, which makes it real. Something shifted in that moment, in that quiet conference room with its expensive furniture and view of the sleeping city. She looked up at Vincent, really looked at him, and saw not the dangerous crime boss or the ruthless businessman, but a man trying desperately to be better than his inheritance. Why did you really offer me this job? She asked softly. Because I was tired of being surrounded by people who were afraid of me or using me. You were neither. You stood up to me, tried to take me down, and when you couldn't, you didn't fold completely. You negotiated. You pushed back. You treated me like a person, not a reputation. He reached out, hesitated, then gently touched her cheek. You saw me, Sarah. The real me. And I haven't been able to stop thinking about that. Her breath caught. Vincent, I know this is complicated. I know I'm the last person you should trust, let alone feel anything for. But these past 2 months, working with you, watching you challenge me and push me and make me better. He stopped, laughed quietly. I'm making a mess of this. You're doing fine. I'm trying to tell you that you matter to me. More than an employee, more than an asset. You matter. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. And I think I might matter to you too. Maybe not the same way, but something. Sarah should have stepped back, should have reminded him about professional boundaries and power dynamics, and all the excellent reasons why this was a terrible idea, but she'd spent 2 months watching Vincent Moretti transform from the monster in her nightmares into something more nuanced. A man carrying impossible weight, trying to honor his father's legacy while escaping its shadow. A man who'd spared her when he didn't have to, who'd given her power when he could have taken everything. A man who was looking at her like she was the most important thing in his carefully controlled world. Something, she whispered, and then his mouth was on hers. The kiss was gentle at first, questioning, giving her space to pull away. She didn't. Instead, she dropped the file on the conference table and pulled him closer, and the kiss deepened into something desperate and real. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that for weeks." "You could have." "No, I needed you to want it too. Needed to know this was your choice. Not something I'd pressured you into. Always so careful about consent for a crime boss. Especially for a crime boss. The women in my world, too many of them don't have real choices. I never wanted to be that man." He kissed her again, softer. "Tell me this is real. Tell me you're here because you want to be, not because you're afraid." "I'm terrified," Sarah admitted, "but not of you. Of this. Of what it means." "What does it mean?" "That I'm falling for a man I'm supposed to hate. That I'm crossing lines I swore I never would. That I'm choosing you over everything I thought I believed about right and wrong." Vincent pulled back slightly, studying her face. "You don't have to choose. You can hate what I am and still..." "Still what? Still love you?" The word slipped out before she could stop it, hanging in the air between them like a confession. His expression transformed, something vulnerable and amazed breaking through his careful control. "Do you?" "I don't know. Maybe. Is that insane?" "Completely." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her mouth. "But I stopped being sane about you the moment you walked into that courtroom." They stayed in that conference room for another hour, talking in ways they never had before. Vincent told her about his father, the violence he'd witnessed growing up, the impossible expectations that came with inheriting an empire built on fear. Sarah told him about her own family, the ordinary struggles that seemed trivial next to his but shaped her just as deeply. "I want to do this right," Vincent said eventually. "Not hide you, not keep you as some secret. I want everyone to know you're mine. I'm not property." Poor phrasing. "I want everyone to know I'm yours. That you've chosen me, improbably and impossibly. That Vincent Moretti is off the market because an accountant with more courage than sense decided he was worth the risk." Sarah laughed despite herself. "When you put it that way, it sounds almost romantic." "It is romantic. It's also complicated and dangerous, and probably going to blow up in our faces." He stood, pulled her to her feet. "But I want it anyway. I want you, anyway. The question is what you want." What did she want? A month ago, she would have said safety, normalcy, a life free from fear and moral compromise. But standing there in Vincent's arms, feeling more alive and seen than she had in years, she realized those things mattered less than she'd thought. "I want this," she said finally. "I want you, even though it's crazy. Especially because it's crazy." Vincent kissed her again, and this time there was promise in it, claim and surrender all at once. "Then let's be crazy together." The next 6 months were the strangest of Sarah's life. By day, she was the director of financial operations, attending board meetings and negotiating contracts and building a reputation as one of Vincent's most trusted advisors. By night, she was Vincent's partner in every sense, sharing dinners and conversations and a connection that deepened with each passing week. He was careful with her, always. Never pressuring, never assuming, always making sure she had space to be her own person. But gradually, inevitably, their lives intertwined. She started keeping clothes at his penthouse. He started joining her for family dinners with Emma and the kids, charming her sister despite Sarah's warnings about his background. "He's different than I expected," Emma admitted after one such dinner. "Nicer, more normal." "He's still who he is." "I know, but he looks at you like you're the only person in the world. That counts for something." It counted for everything, Sarah was learning. The way Vincent listened when she talked, really listened, incorporating her thoughts into his decisions. The way he defended her in meetings when executives questioned her authority. The way he trusted her with not just the file he'd given her, but with pieces of himself she suspected no one else had seen. "You've changed me," he told her one night, lying tangled together in his enormous bed. "Made me want to be better. Not just different from my father, but actually good." "You were always good. Just complicated. Semantics." He kissed her shoulder. "I love you, you know. In case that wasn't obvious." It was the first time he'd said it outright. Sarah's breath caught. "I love you, too. God help me, but I do. God probably stopped paying attention to me years ago. Then I'll pay attention enough for both of us." He proposed on a Tuesday, of all things. No grand gesture, no elaborate setup. Just the two of them in his office after everyone else had gone home, reviewing acquisition proposals, and suddenly he was kneeling beside her chair with a ring that looked like it cost more than her first car. "Marry me," he said simply. "Be my wife, my partner, my conscience. Help me build something worth having. I know it's insane. I know I'm asking you to tie yourself to someone with my reputation, but yes." Sarah didn't let him finish. "Yes, of course, yes." The ring slid onto her finger perfectly, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds that caught the office lights and threw blue fire across her hand. Vincent stood, pulled her up, kissed her like she was air, and he'd been drowning. "I'm going to make you so happy," he promised against her mouth. "You already do." They married quietly 3 months later, a small ceremony at City Hall with Emma and her kids, Sarah's mother, and a handful of Vincent's executives who'd become unlikely friends. Nothing elaborate, nothing that would draw media attention. Just a moment, simple and real, where Sarah Mitchell became Sarah Moretti and felt like she was finally where she belonged. The reception was another story. Vincent insisted on hosting something for the broader business community, partly to cement their partnership, partly because he wanted to show her off. "You're mine now," he murmured as they prepared for the evening. "I want everyone to know it." The event was held at the newest Moretti Hotel, a glittering space filled with Chicago's elite. Sarah wore a dress that cost more than she used to make in a month, Vincent devastating in a tuxedo that had definitely been custom-made. They moved through the crowd together, his hand never leaving the small of her back, claiming her in a way that was both protective and possessive. "Vincent," a woman's voice cut through the music and conversation. Sarah turned to see Melissa standing there, perfectly composed in a navy dress. Vincent's expression went cold. "You weren't invited." "I know. But I needed to say something." Melissa looked at Sarah, and there was something almost like regret in her eyes. "I'm sorry. For the photographs, the surveillance, all of it. I thought I was protecting Vincent, but I was really just being cruel. You didn't deserve that." Sarah glanced at Vincent, who nodded slightly. "Your call." "I appreciate the apology," Sarah said carefully, "but you put my family in danger. Terrorized me. I'm not sure sorry covers it." "It doesn't. I know that." Melissa straightened her shoulders. "I've left the organization. I'm moving to New York next week. But I wanted you to know that Vincent was right about you. You've made him better. Made all of us rethink how we operate. That's worth something." She left before either of them could respond, disappearing into the crowd. "Well," Vincent said quietly. "That was unexpected. Do you think she meant it? Does it matter? You won. You took everything I thought I was and made it into something new. Something better." He pulled her closer, and suddenly they were dancing, moving to music Sarah hadn't noticed starting. "You're the most extraordinary thing that's ever happened to me, Sarah Moretti, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret saying yes." Sarah looked up at her husband that would take getting used to, and saw her future written in his eyes. Not simple, never simple, but real and true and earned through trial and terror, and the strange alchemy that had transformed them both. "I already don't regret it," she said. "Not for a second." He kissed her there on the dance floor, in front of everyone, claiming her and surrendering to her all at once. And Sarah kissed him back, This complicated, dangerous man she'd chosen, who'd chosen her right back. The case was closed. But her life, their life, was just beginning. The threat came 6 months into their marriage, on a morning so ordinary Sarah would later marvel at how quickly everything could fall apart. She was reviewing quarterly projections in her office when Vincent's assistant appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Mrs. Moretti, you need to come to Vincent's office, now." The walk down the hall felt endless. Vincent was standing at his desk, phone pressed to his ear, and the expression on his face made Sarah's blood run cold. She'd seen him angry before, frustrated, even worried. But this was different. This was fear. He hung up, turned to her, and said 3 words that stopped her heart. "They have Emma." The world tilted. "What?" "Someone took your sister. 2 hours ago from the parking lot of her gym. Her kids are safe. They were at school, but Emma..." His jaw clenched. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Sarah's knees gave out. Vincent caught her, guided her to a chair, but she couldn't process what he was saying. Emma. Her sister. The woman who'd defended her when she started working for Vincent, who'd welcomed him into their family despite everything. "Who?" Sarah's voice didn't sound like her own. "I don't know yet, but they called from her phone 10 minutes ago with demands." Vincent crouched in front of her, taking her hands. "They want me to back out of the Port District development. Want me to pull my bid and leave the project to their client." The Port District development was huge, a $1 billion waterfront project that would transform an entire neighborhood. Moretti Holdings had been working on the bid for 2 years, and they were the frontrunner. Sarah had personally structured the financing package. So back out, give them whatever they want. It's not that simple. The bid closing is in 4 hours. If I withdraw now, I lose the deposit, $50 million, and I show weakness. Every competitor in this city will know I can be manipulated through civilians." His hands tightened on hers. "But none of that matters. I'll burn every dollar I have if it means getting Emma back safely. I just need to understand what we're dealing with." "Then figure it out." Sarah pulled away, started pacing. "You have people, resources, connections. Use them. Find my sister." Vincent was already moving, phone in hand, calling people whose names Sarah didn't recognize. Within 20 minutes, his office was filled with men in expensive suits, their faces hard and their voices low. They spoke in euphemisms and coded language, but Sarah understood enough. They were Vincent's real people, not the legitimate business executives, but the remnants of his father's organization. "It's the Castellano family," one of them said, a broad-shouldered man Vincent called Marco. "They're backing the rival bid for the Port District. This is Thomas Castellano's play. He wants that development bad enough to cross you." Vincent's expression went deadly calm, which somehow was more frightening than rage. "Where is she?" "Working on it. They're smart enough not to use any of their usual properties, but we've got people checking. Not good enough. I want her location in 2 hours, or I start burning down everything Castellano owns until someone talks." Sarah watched her husband transform into someone she'd never fully seen before. Not the careful businessman who'd courted her with promises of legitimacy, but the man who'd inherited a criminal empire and knew how to wield its power. It should have terrified her. Instead, she felt a fierce gratitude. "Vincent." She moved to his side. "What do you need from me?" He looked at her, and some of the coldness left his eyes. "I need you somewhere safe. If they took Emma to get to me through you, they might try for you next." "Absolutely not. She's my sister." "Sarah." "No, I'm not hiding while she's in danger. I can help. I know the Port District finances better than anyone. If this is about the development, maybe I can see an angle you're missing." One of the men started to protest, but Vincent held up a hand. "She's right. Sarah, pull every file we have on the Port District bid. Look for anything that connects to Castellano interests. Shell companies, subsidiary connections, anything that might give us leverage." For the next 90 minutes, Sarah worked faster than she ever had, cross-referencing documents and tracking financial threads while Vincent coordinated the search for Emma. She barely noticed when he left the room, too focused on the numbers swimming across her screen. Then she found it. "Vincent!" She didn't care who heard her shouting. He was back in seconds. "Look at this. 3 of the companies backing the rival bid are owned by the same holding group. And that holding group has a silent partner who's..." She pulled up another document. "He's facing federal investigation for fraud. If that investigation goes public before the bid closes, the whole rival package collapses." Vincent scanned the documents, his mind clearly racing. "You're sure about this?" "Positive. I triple-checked the ownership chains." Sarah looked up at him. "If you threaten to leak this information, Castellano loses the development anyway. The city won't accept a bid with federal investigation clouds hanging over it. So we have leverage." Vincent pulled out his phone, made a call. "Thomas, we need to talk, now." A pause. "Because I have documents that will destroy your Port District bid and probably send your silent partner to prison. You have something I want. I have something you need. Let's negotiate like civilized people." The conversation lasted 3 minutes. When Vincent hung up, he looked at Sarah with something like awe. "They're bringing Emma to neutral ground. Fitzgerald Park, 1 hour. The exchange is simple. She goes free, I don't leak the documents, and they withdraw their bid gracefully." "Just like that?" "Just like that. You gave me the weapon I needed." He pulled her close, kissed her forehead. "You saved your sister, Sarah. You're brilliant." The hour until the exchange was the longest of Sarah's life. Vincent insisted she stay at the office with 2 of his security people while he handled the actual meeting. And for once, she didn't argue. She was exhausted, running on adrenaline and coffee and prayer. When her phone finally rang, she nearly dropped it answering. "She's safe." Vincent's voice was steady, calm. "Emma's safe. I'm bringing her to you now." Sarah started crying, relief crashing over her in waves so powerful she had to sit down. 20 minutes later, the elevator doors opened and Emma walked out, rumpled and shaken, but whole. Sarah ran to her, wrapped her in a hug that probably hurt. "I'm okay," Emma kept saying. "I'm okay, Sarah. They didn't hurt me, just scared me. I'm so sorry. This is my fault, being married to Vincent, putting you in danger." "Stop." Emma pulled back, gripping Sarah's shoulders. "This isn't your fault. It's the fault of the people who took me. And Vincent." She looked past Sarah to where Vincent stood, giving them space. "He got me back. His people were professional. The exchange was clean. He kept his word." Vincent approached slowly, like Emma might bolt. "Mrs. Chen, I apologize. This should never have happened. I've already implemented additional security measures for you and your children. No one will use my family against me again. Your family." Emma repeated the words, then smiled tiredly. "I guess we are, aren't we? For better or worse. Definitely worse today. But I promise you, the people responsible will face consequences. Thomas Castellano is finished in this city. I'll make sure of that. I don't need revenge. I just need to go home to my kids." Emma turned to Sarah. "Walk me out?" In the elevator, Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then, "He loves you, really loves you. I saw it in his face when he came to get me. He looked like the world was ending. It would have been, if anything had happened to you. But it didn't. And Sarah? The way you 2 worked together, you solving the financial puzzle while he handled the negotiations, that's a real partnership. Not just romance, but genuine teamwork." Emma squeezed her hand. "I know I worried when you first got together. The danger, his background, all of it. But today showed me something. You make each other better. You make him want to solve problems without violence, and he gives you the power to protect the people you love. That's worth something." It was worth everything, Sarah was learning. The aftermath of Emma's kidnapping rippled through Chicago's underworld like a stone through water. Thomas Castellano didn't just lose the Port District bid. He lost credibility, territory, and eventually fled to Miami to avoid Vincent's quiet campaign of systematic destruction. The message was clear. Vincent Moretti protected his own, and the cost of threatening his family was total annihilation. But what surprised Sarah was how Vincent handled the victory. No gloating, no public displays of power. He simply ensured the people responsible were removed from the board, then went back to running his businesses, legitimate and otherwise. "You're different than your father would have been," Sarah observed one night, months later. They were in the penthouse, watching the city lights and drinking wine. "He would have made this bloody. He would have started a war. Bodies in the street, revenge killings, escalation until someone was dead or imprisoned." Vincent's arm tightened around her waist. "But that's not who I want to be. Not who I can be, with you beside me. I didn't do anything. You did everything. You showed me that intelligence is more powerful than violence, that loyalty and love are worth more than fear, that I could build a legacy that doesn't require body counts." He turned her to face him. "My father died alone, Sarah. Paranoid and isolated, trusting no one. I'm going to die old and happy, surrounded by family, because you taught me the difference." Sarah kissed him, tasting wine and promise. "I love you, even when you're dramatic. Especially when I'm dramatic." He kissed her back, deeper. "I have something for you." He pulled a folder from the side table. That folder, the one he'd given her months ago, with all the evidence of his illegal operations. "Burn it." "What?" "Those operations don't exist anymore. I told you I was shutting them down, and I did, completely. Everything in that file is history. So burn it. I don't want insurance between us. I want trust, pure and simple." "Vincent, are you sure? This is your protection, too. If anything ever, nothing will. And if it does, I'd rather face consequences than have you carry the weight of choosing whether to destroy me." His eyes were steady, certain. "Burn it, Sarah. Let's start completely clean." They burned it that night in the penthouse fireplace, watching years of evidence turn to ash. It felt like an ending and a beginning all at once, the past releasing its hold so the future could take shape. 2 years later, Sarah stood in the nursery of their penthouse, holding their daughter, and watching Vincent assemble a crib with more determination than skill. Their daughter, Grace, was 3 months old and perfect, with Vincent's gray eyes and Sarah's stubborn chin. "You're doing it wrong," Sarah observed, trying not to laugh. "I'm doing it fine. This instruction manual is clearly designed by sadists." Vincent threw down the Allen wrench, then picked up Grace instead. "Hello, beautiful girl. Tell your mother I'm an excellent father, even if I can't build furniture." Grace gurgled happily, grabbing his finger with surprising strength. "She agrees with me," Vincent declared. Sarah watched them together, her dangerous, complicated husband cradling their daughter with infinite gentleness, and felt a contentment she'd never imagined possible. Her life hadn't turned out anything like she'd planned. She'd become the wife of a man with a criminal past, the CFO of a company with complicated foundations, the mother of a child who would inherit a legacy both impressive and troubling. But she'd also become someone stronger than she'd been in that courtroom 3 years ago. Someone who understood that morality wasn't always clear-cut, that people could change, that love was sometimes found in the most unexpected places. Emma visited weekly with her kids, who adored their Uncle Vincent and couldn't understand why their friends thought his name was scary. Sarah's mother had come around eventually, charmed by Vincent's old-world courtesy and the way he obviously worshipped her daughter. The family Sarah had been so afraid for had embraced the life she'd built, complicated as it was. "What are you thinking about?" Vincent asked, Grace now asleep against his shoulder. "How far we've come. How different everything is. Better or worse?" Sarah moved to his side, wrapped her arms around both of them. "Better. Infinitely better. Even with the complications. Especially with the complications." He kissed the top of her head. "You know the board wants to make you CEO of the hotel division." "I heard. Are you sure? That's a lot of visibility for someone with my history." Your history is that you tried to do the right thing, got caught in an impossible situation, and turned it into an opportunity to build something meaningful. That's exactly the kind of person I want running our companies." He shifted Grace carefully. "Besides, you're twice as smart as any of the current executives, and 3 times as ruthless when you need to be. You'll be brilliant." "Ruthless? Me? You negotiated that supplier contract last month." "I've never seen grown men look so defeated." Vincent grinned. "You're a Moretti now, Sarah. We don't lose." She took the position, because he was right. She would be brilliant at it. And over the following years, she proved it, transforming the hotel division into the crown jewel of Moretti Holdings. She did it with intelligence and strategy, the same skills that had once made her dangerous to Vincent, now making her invaluable. They built something together that was more than the sum of their parts. A business empire, yes, but also a family, a partnership, a legacy. Vincent kept his promise. The illegal operations stayed shut down, replaced by legitimate ventures that were profitable enough to satisfy even his father's old associates. And Sarah kept her promise too, standing beside him through challenges and triumphs, never letting him forget who he'd chosen to become. Sometimes, late at night when she couldn't sleep, Sarah thought about that day in the courtroom. The fear, the shame, the certainty that her life was ending. She'd run from that witness stand, convinced she'd failed every test that mattered. But she'd been wrong. The real test had come later, in the choice between safety and risk, between rejecting Vincent Moretti and understanding him. She'd chosen risk, chosen understanding, and found something she never expected. She found herself. Strong, capable, loved beyond measure. She found a partner who saw her completely and valued everything he saw. She found a life that was complicated and sometimes dangerous, but never, ever boring. The case that had brought them together was closed. But the story they'd written together was still being told, would be told for years to come in the business they built, and the daughter they raised and the love that had transformed them both. Sarah Mitchell had walked into a courtroom terrified and alone. Sarah Moretti walked through the world powerful and partnered, carrying the name of a man who'd learned that the strongest empires were built not on fear, but on trust. And she'd never been happier to be proven wrong about where her life would lead.